The record reflect we are back in session. Parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury or alternates are present. And you can call your next witness.
Sergeant Ryan Smith, please.
Do you solemnly state that evidence in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, except your facts?
I do.
Sweet. State your full name, spell it for the record.
Ryan Smith, R-Y-A-N-S-M-I-T-H.
Okay, you may proceed.
What is your occupation, sir?
I am a sergeant for the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, currently assigned to the homicide detail.
How long have you been employed as a sworn peace officer?
About 15 years.
How long have you been with the homicide detail?
I've been back as a sergeant for about a year. Prior to that, I worked as a detective for a little over 2 years.
During your time as a detective, were you assigned to the team investigating this case?
Yes, I was.
How did you become involved in that?
I was, essentially, as you said, I was assigned to the team. I was originally working crimes against children, and I was pulled over to assist.
What was your impression when you first were handed this case and told what it was about?
Objection relevant.
Sustained.
Have you heard as to foundation?
No, objection sustained.
Thank you. What investigative steps, in general, were taken by the team from the time you were handed this case in 2013?
Objection relevant foundation.
A little overbroad. Sustained a little overbroad.
As a team, did you then review the reports from San Diego?
Yes, we did.
How voluminous were they?
I believe just the case file document of the San Diego Sheriff's Department was about 3,500 pages.
Did you review physical evidence that may have been recovered from San Diego Sheriff's Department?
Yes, we did.
Okay, such as?
Such as the items and the computers that they recovered from the McStay's residence, as well as items from the trooper that's on board.
During the course of the investigation, did you or your team author search warrants to gain other evidence?
Yes, we did.
Such as?
Objection as to foundation hearsay.
Sustained, again, sustained is overbroad.
Do you have personal knowledge of how many search warrants were sought and obtained by the team to execute in this investigation?
I do.
How many?
It was over 60.
Do you know how many do you have personal knowledge as to how many interviews were done after you received this case from San Diego to further investigation?
I do.
Approximately how many?
Over 200.
Did the investigation focus solely on the defendant?
No.
Why not?
Well,
Objection as to this would be hearsay, foundation, and relevant.
Overruled again.
because it was important for us to include and exclude everyone. There were no known suspects when we received the case from San Diego.
And you received the case from San Diego, if I understand the previous testimony, once the remains were recovered in our county.
That is correct.
And up to that point, you are aware of anyone in San Bernardino County being involved in that investigation with San Diego?
No, no one was involved with San Diego prior to that.
So I'm just going to talk about a couple things real briefly with you. Exhibit number 311, we heard of this with Ms. Radliff. Do you recognize that photograph?
I do.
And how do you recognize it?
These are the keys in a key ring that was retrieved from Joseph McStay's pocket during the excavation.
As part of the investigation, did San Diego Sheriff's Department obtain possession of the McStay's Isuzu Trooper?
Yes, they did.
At some point during the investigation, was any of these keys attempted to see if it fit with the Isuzu Trooper?
Yes.
And which key would that be?
So on the exhibit, it would be the one to the court's well, I guess it'd be my left as well, if I'm facing the picture. And it's an ILCO, I-L-C-O, copy of the key.
It did not say Isuzu on it, right?
No,
Did it say Trooper?
no.
And did you attempt to fit that to the Trooper?
Yes, I did.
And tell us your results.
It worked for both the door and the ignition.
Okay. When, by the way, did you do that, in all candor?
That was January 15th of this year.
Okay. Why so long?
It became relevant during the course of this trial.
Okay. And part of this investigation was the possibility of that being the Trooper key discussed over the years?
Yes, it was.
And did it just fall through the cracks?
It did, and also it was a copy of the key, so I don't know many people who don't have more than one copy of our key.
Okay. So the significance of it wasn't necessarily impressing on you at that point?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm also going to show you exhibits 45 and 44 that were seen with Dennis Williams. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what are those?
These are photographs of a gatehouse house key. And this is I'll show you. On the left, I'm highlighting or circling the keys. These were found during San Diego's processing of the residence, and they fit the lock of the house, the deadbolt of the house.
Okay. And was there a correlation to the keys that were recovered in Exhibit 311?
Yes, there was. So in the center of the screen, right underneath the card key, this was also a Gatehouse brand house key.
Okay. We heard testimony previously about items, I believe it was like E7 and E8. They were Chateau padlock keys, I believe.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have the picture handy. In Exhibit 311, is that one of those keys?
Yeah, so the Chateau key is actually hidden underneath this Albertsons like supermarket card. It would be to the middle, kind of, I guess, to the left of the screen, but it's this key right here, underneath it. This is a small lock key, and then there's a Chateau key underneath it.
During the course of your handling of this case, did you have an opportunity to view that in comparison with the single key that was found in the pocket of Mr. McStay's clothing?
I did.
And were they visually similar?
Yes, they're both visually Chateau brand keys. They both have a gray cover on them. However, the single key is significantly deteriorated.
Did you investigate what Chateau is?
I did.
What is it?
Chateau is a lock company. They specialize in padlocks, and they are commonly found at storage utility storage companies, storage sheds.
Well, I guess there's no surprise what's coming up next. Let me show you what's being displayed as Exhibit 401. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And how do you recognize it?
That is the Chevrolet 3500 pickup truck that belonged to the defendant in 2010.
And, okay, so you inherited this case in 2013 into 14. When's this picture taken?
This picture was taken on August 14th, I believe, of 2014.
Okay, so did you have to track this truck down, or was it still in the possession of the defendant?
No, we had to track it down.
Tell us your process.
So the first thing we did is we ran Mr. Merritt's name and found vehicles registered to him. We were able to find a Chevrolet utility truck, and it had a license plate of, I believe the license plate was 6 K as in King, Sam, X-ray 661, and it was actually subplated. And what that means is the car had been resold and they put a different license plate on it, but the VIN number was still the same. So by running that license plate number that was associated to Mr. Merritt back in 2010, we found the new license plate number, which is depicted in this picture in the center, 33292, D as in David 1. And we found that it was currently registered to I believe it's Nels Bloom was the current registered owner. So he lived in Boston or somewhere, Riverside area, and that may be incorrect, that's where he actually lived. But we went to his residence and we compared the VIN number of the current registration with the VIN number from the DMV printout from when Mr. Merritt owned the vehicle, and we found that they were the same vehicle.
Did you find any other corroborative evidence that it was the same vehicle?
Yes. So after we got an initial, hey, this may be the vehicle, we went there and we spoke with Mr. Bloom, and we found out that he actually bought the vehicle from Ritchie Brothers Auction. So he had paperwork from Ritchie Brothers Auction, which he provided to us, that showed the car was sold to them in 2011.
Your Honor, objection is irrelevant, it's really hearsay.
Sustained on hearsay grounds.
Offered not for the truth of the matter, Your Honor.
It's not relevant.
The objection sustained on hearsay grounds. The jury's instructed to disregard the last answer as to when the vehicle was sold to the Merritt.
Did you find any other corroborative evidence linking the defendant to this truck?
We did.
What was that?
We actually went to the used car lot that sold Mr. Merritt the truck, and we spoke with the owner.
Okay. Did you find any other documentary evidence linking the defendant to this truck?
We did.
What was that?
There were photographs of this truck at the McStay residence with Mr. Actually, it was a home video that has the truck there with Mr. Merritt there at the residence.
How would object is to hearsay testifying as to a writing video?
Overruled.
So I'm going to go through these photos kind of quickly just to give us a tour of the vehicle. I'm going to show you exhibit number 402. Can you please describe for the record what that is?
So what you're looking at is the rear driver's side of the vehicle, and the photograph is taken from the rear driver's side tailgate forward.
403.
And this would be the other side of the vehicle, the passenger side, the rear passenger side of the vehicle, and the photograph is taken from the rear of the vehicle forward.
By the way, where are these pictures being taken?
These were taken at a sheriff's, well, at the crime lab, which is right next to our sheriff's headquarters.
So you took this poor truck from Mr. Bloom?
Correct. He consented to us taking the truck.
How long did you deprive him of the use of that truck?
I think it was like 3 days or 4 days.
Okay. And what was the reason for having the truck, and what were you going to do with it?
We needed to photograph it. We wanted to process it, take any samples of it, see if there was any evidence in there similar to how detectives or sergeants here testified about the house, to see if there was anything there that could be relevant.
Of course, given the context of it being 3 to 4 years later.
Correct.
Okay. So as part of that process, who processed the vehicle for you?
Crime scene specialist Mike Russ and I processed the vehicle.
Russ, R-U-S-S?
Correct.
Okay. So exhibit number, so part of that is photography, correct?
Yes, sir.
Exhibit 404?
So what you're looking at is a photograph of the cargo area of the truck with the two-part tailgate down.
405?
Again, this is that same rear cargo area, but we put a measuring tape diagonal. We did one across from front to back and diagonal as well to measure the dimensions of the compartment.
Do you recall, did you make notations of what this measurement was by any chance?
This was around 6 foot, 6'1" inch, I believe.
And then exhibit number 406?
That would be the height of the truck, or of the compartment area of the truck.
Did you make a notation of approximately what that measurement was?
I did.
What was that?
It's about 2 feet 3 inches.
Was there, in the processing of this truck, was there a need to take other measurements that you thought may be relevant to other pieces of evidence in the case?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
We measured the wheelbase.
So I'm going to show you exhibit number 407, if you recognize that.
I do.
What is that?
This is a picture of measuring tape across the front wheels of the truck. this is a close-up. This would be the front passenger side. It's a close-up of the measuring tape to show that we didn't start from the end of the measuring tape. You start at the first foot, so that way if there's any dings on the measuring tape, you're not accounting for that. You're going from foot 1 all the way through to the end measurement.
409 then?
This would be the end measurement.
Okay. And did you know approximately what that outside width was?
I did.
What was that?
73 inches.
73 or 83?
So,
Oh, you're right, you're starting at 1 foot.
correct. 73.
In Exhibit 410, is that an overall photo of that process?
Yes, sir.
Did you do the same to the rear?
Yes, we did.
Exhibit 411?
Again, this is a photograph of that measuring tape across the rear wheels.
And this also gives you just a view of somewhat of the undercarriage of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Can you see the exhaust pipe on this truck from this view?
Yeah, the exhaust pipe would be to the right of the photograph, and it's a low-hanging exhaust pipe behind the rear passenger side wheel.
So passenger side, right side, correct?
Correct.
And that measurement process, again, exhibit number 412. Did you use the same process here?
Correct. This is a close-up of the measuring tape to indicate where the starting point was.
And exhibit 413, is that the ending?
Correct.
Did you notate an approximate width?
Yes.
Of the tire width or suspension width of the truck at that point?
The wheelbase was 73 inches.
Just a second, Your Honor. The truck, as part of the processing, was that aside from that still photography, was another type of documentation done with the truck at that time?
Yes.
Okay. Is that called a Faro scan?
We didn't Faro scan it at that time. We Faro scanned it later.
When was that?
I have to look at my report to give you the exact date. It was quite a bit later. I want to say maybe even months later.
Okay, but it was the same truck you Faro scanned.
Correct.
And last question. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
No.
Oh, sorry. No further questions.
Cross?
Can we approach before Andrew?
Sure.
Ready,
Okay. Cross is speaking.
Yes, sir, thank you. Detective Smith, in regards to the Chevy truck that you measured, showing you exhibit 408, if we can have mine up. .408 would be the front tires of the truck,
Yes, it appears to be.
and the tape measure of the edge appears to start at 12 inch.
Thereabouts. Yes, sir.
So we would go to exhibit 49, 409, excuse me, thank you. And that ends at approximately 83.
Say 83, 84 if you're going to the furthest outer, because of prolongation.
So the end of the tires here, maybe 43 and 3/8.
Objection, I'm not sure where the 43 comes from.
83, yes, I'm sorry. 83 and 3/8, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So 83 and 3/8 minus 12 is what?
Well, I would go back, and again, you're talking about the prolongation at 84, and then the 12 or the 11 would be the when tire sinks in.
So you're not measuring the tread, you're measuring the width of the tire outside the tread.
You're without the outside of the tire to the outside of the tire, yes, sir.
So you're not measuring the outside of the tread, you're measuring the outside of the tire that's not contacting the road.
Correct. You're measuring the outside of, again, the outside of the tire to the outside of the tire.
What's the distance on the outside of tread to outside of tread that would contact the road?
Tread to tread, okay. Again, where you're looking at it is you're looking at where the tire is rising up. If you look back further in the picture, where I'm pointing out to the kind of the upper right here, is where the tire would be actually contacting the road, not this upper part where the tread is up. And that would be more indicative of 84 inches.
Question was, what is the width of where the tread meets the road?
The tread is on the road at 84 inches.
Not 83 and 3/8.
Again, you're taking it from where it's raised, and I'm taking it from where the tire is actually depressed and on the road. And you would have that same thing in this. Oh, there's no question, sorry.
So again, exhibit 412, right, is the rear tires.
Correct?
And where's the tread start? On the road.
The tread is going to be at this 12. The depression where the tire is going to be in there is about 11.5. You'll see it on the road. But you can see the 12 on the mid-left is kind of already on the tire.
So shouldn't it be a 10.5 or 11 since it's out here on the edge?
Yes, you can't really see from this picture where the pressure of the tire is on the road. But yes.
And then exhibit 413, where does it end?
This is actually a better picture where you can see how the tire compresses and is on the road. But that would be 84.
84, but that's not a straight shot of the tire, correct?
No, it's not.
So it looks like actually 84. 84. You said that one was how wide?
These are 73 inches.
What's the width of the Dodge Rams tires? You guys measured those too, right?
Correct.
73 inches as well, weren't they?
I believe they were 71.
Sure.
I'd have to look at my report.
Do you have the report with you?
I can pull it up. I have an electronic copy.
You want to take a look?
Sure.
I'm done.
Did reviewing your report refresh your memory?
Yes, did.
That's right, it's actually 76, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. We both remember.
That's the McStay Dodge Ram that you're referring to?
Yes, sir. The green document.
Okay.
Now, just so we have a complete layout of the measurements of the Chevy truck, you say my client's truck,
Yes, sir.
white Chevy, what were the measurements from the ground to the headlights?
Don't believe we measured that at that time, but the previously indicated Faro data, which would have that measurement.
Is that on page 8 of your report on measurements?
If I could look at my report.
Sure.
So my computer's not scrolling to page 8. If you have it, I could look at your copy. If not, you gotta wait for my computer to.
I have it on my screen here, Your Honor. Is it okay if you...
Sure.
Come on down. reviewing that report, refresh your memory of the measurements you guys took.
Correct. Those were actually measurements taken by Detective Bachman. I was present there when we processed it, but I didn't take those measurements.
And what was the measurement for the headlight from the ground for my client's truck?
Objection, foundation, hearsay. No personal knowledge.
So the top of the headlight, from the top of the headlight to the ground was 39 inches. The middle of the headlight was 35 inches. And the bottom of the headlight, again, to the ground was 32 and a half inches.
And there were parking lights or the yellow lights below the headlights, correct?
Running lights, yes.
The running lights. And what were the running lights heights to the ground? Did you write those down?
Yes, the marker lights.
Objection, hearsay, lacks foundation and personal knowledge.
The top of the marker light to the ground was 31 inches, and the bottom of the marker light to the ground was 28 and a half inches.
Also, did you measure the lights that are in the back? The rear of the truck has these tail lights that are on the side of the kind of work boxes, correct?
Running lights, yes.
The running lights. Those are ones that you can see from the side of the vehicle and the rear of the vehicle, correct?
Correct. You should be able to see them both.
And did you measure the distance of those lights to the ground?
Objection, foundation, lacks personal knowledge, hearsay.
Those measurements from the side marker light to the ground, the top of those side markers were measured 61 inches, and the bottom of that side marker to the ground 60 inches.
Now, were you involved in the video that was taken of this truck at night by the sheriff's department?
Objection, relevance beyond the scope.
I was present, yes.
And when the video was taken, the parking lights or the running lights were on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you turn those off when you had the truck running with the headlights on? Let me ask you, did you guys try to turn them off while the headlights are still on?
You couldn't. No.
So the parking lights or the running lights always had to be on when the headlights were on?
Yeah, correct. It's like any car. The running lights always turn on as you turn the headlights on.
Except for Toyota, they turn off the Toyota.
Objection, assumes facts not evidence. Move to strike counsel's comments.
Carries instruct disregard counsel.
Now, the keys that were in Joseph McStay's pocket when he was recovered from the ground, you didn't look at that until January 15th of this year.
Objection, vague.
That's incorrect.
Well, you didn't test them in the vehicle with the trooper until the 15th of this year.
That's correct.
2 weeks ago.
Correct.
And is it your testimony on direct that you just didn't think it was relevant that the keys for the vehicle were inside the pocket of the victim?
Objection, this states his testimony and is argumentative.
No, that's what he said.
The objection sustained was argumentative in this case.
Did you say on direct that you saw no significance of those keys in the pocket?
I don't believe I said significance.
What did you say?
I said we tested them because it became relevant during this trial.
Why didn't you test them before?
Because it was abundantly clear they didn't drive themselves to the desert in their car, bury themselves, and then drive their car to the border.
But his vehicle was not found at home, correct?
That's correct.
So the vehicle had to be driven at some time away from the home.
Correct. And as I indicated, that key is
Sir?
clearly a copy.
Please answer the question that I only asked. And he had house keys also in his pocket, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if you have house keys and car keys in the pocket of your clothes, is it not a reasonable inference to look at from an investigative standpoint is, did Joseph drive that car to San Diego? Where it was found.
I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to get at, but again, my testimony is that it was abundantly clear they didn't drive themselves to the desert and then drive the car down to San Diego, and that key was clearly a copy.
Right. But did you eliminate the idea that they drove the car down to San Ysidro and were taking there until deposited in the desert?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did that become part of your investigation that maybe they were taken outside the house?
Objection calls for speculation.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you say taken, are you referring to what?
If they drove the car down to San Ysidro and somehow they were taken from where they drove the vehicle and ended up in a grave in Victorville, does that come into your investigation?
Absolutely. That was in the investigation from the time the McStays were missing people. The video down at the border of the stores were pulled. The video at the border was pulled. There was no evidence that the McStays were down there other than that border video, which wasn't them. So I would say yes, that was checked, and we did review that.
You just said that wasn't them. You don't know that for sure, right? The family wasn't sure. There was no conclusive evidence because you couldn't see their faces that it wasn't them.
Objection, argumentative, speculation.
Objection sustained, sir, argumentative.
You just said that that was not them in the video. How were you able to conclude that?
Well, there were multiple pieces of evidence at the house that would indicate that that video was not them. For example, the Ugg boots that they thought someone was wearing were outside of the house by the door and were found during the service of San Diego search warrant. The backpack that they thought the kid was wearing was actually, I'm sorry, since I say kid, I believe it was Gianni was wearing, was found in the car and at the house.
The family still said it might be them, right?
Objection misstates their testimony.
Sustained.
During the investigation, they weren't sure, right?
Objection misstates their testimony. And hearsay.
Objection sustained on evidence code 352 and Kimberly.
Do you know if the McStay family was put in the ground in Victorville before or after February 8th?
Based on the totality of the investigation, I would say yes.
You have evidence to say what date they were put in the ground.
I have evidence to say the last time anyone heard from them was the 4th.
Correct.
Along with the other evidence and the totality of the circumstances, that is how we came to the 4th.
Is the day they were buried?
This is the day that they dropped off the face of the earth.
Did you consider that the items that were left in the kitchen appear to be something you would prepare in the morning of the 5th?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you consider that they were taken from the house on the 5th?
Yes, we considered all of the possibilities. We ended with what the evidence showed us, which is that the last time anyone heard from them was the 4th.
They made breakfast.
Objection. Since facts not evidence calls for speculation.
There were eggs on the counter and coffee made, correct?
Objection. Speculation as to when the coffee was made and the eggs were placed there.
Overruled. You can answer yes or no if that's his understanding.
Correct, and there were popcorn bowls on the futon.
And there was fruit out as well, correct?
Yes,
And the clothes that they were found in the grave, Joseph was wearing his shorts and t-shirt, right?
yes, sir.
He's sleeping.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Summer was in sweats and a bra, right?
Yes, sir.
And did part of your investigation suspect that she was painting near the time that she was contacting her house by third party?
Objection asks him to call for speculation.
Sustained. Local speculation. Conclusion. Again, this is subject of closing argument.
Well, I'm just asking what they're, because they made determinations on when things occur. I'm just asking what part of their determinations they made. That's one.
And you're basically asking for argument, to argue with the witness as to closing argument.
Okay. You don't have any evidence that can say they were definitely in that ground before February 8th, 2010.
Objection, argumentative, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I disagree.
Can you tell from the grave site what day they were put in the ground?
If you're referring to like soil samples or stuff like that, no. We base that on the totality of the evidence as to the last time anyone heard from them.
All you know is they were in the ground at the pole. At what time? When did you say the last contact with them at home?
Objection misstates his testimony, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
What's the last time you know family had contact with anybody alive?
When Joe spoke with Mr. Merritt on the drive home.
And what time was that?
I didn't prepare the cell phone reports, but it's after the
Objection then
evening.
calls for hearsay, not personal knowledge.
It's just evening, right?
Overruled. Again, that's what you have some.
Evening is a fair statement, yes.
So, the evening of the 4th is the last time they were going to be verified alive.
Yes.
And they could have been placed in that ground any time after that.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
And you have no physical evidence that says what date that was, correct?
Yes, there was nothing from the grave site where the bodies were buried that you can get a date from as far as what is on the ground or in the ground, soil sample, stuff like that. There's other evidence that would indicate a time.
Now, you eliminated other suspects. But you learned that Kavanaugh sold the company.
Objection,
After they
relevance,
disappeared.
hearsay, violates and eliminate rulings.
That does not.
Overruled.
Yes, we did learn that Mr. Kavanaugh sold the company yes.
And did you confront Mr. Kavanaugh about that sale?
Objection, relevance, beyond the scope at this point. Also foundation as this witness.
Overruled.
I didn't interview Mr. Kavanaugh.
Objection, lacks foundation, move to strike.
That last answer will.
Are you now the case agent?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. Argumentative.
But did you instruct anybody to ask Mr. Kavanaugh about the sale of that business?
Objection, relevance as to whether he instructed anyone to do anything.
Overruled.
Mr. Kavanaugh's interview was conducted by Detectives Bachman and Henke.
question was, ever instruct anybody to question him about the sale of the business?
I did not instruct anybody, no.
Did you subpoena the contract for the sale of the business?
I did
Objection,
not.
relevance.
Overruled.
I did not do that, no.
Did you make any effort to determine the terms of that sale?
Objection, lacks foundation.
Overruled.
Again, no, I didn't do anything with Mr. Kavanaugh.
Were you aware that Patrick McStay was complaining, saying
Objection, calls for hearsay beyond the scope and relevance.
it's not offered for the truth?
The objection sustained, it's calling for hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth.
The objection still sustained.
Did you subpoena Mr. Kavanaugh's business or bank record?
I did not subpoena Mr. Kavanaugh's bank records, no.
Did you subpoena his PayPal record?
No.
Did you follow up for financial motive that Mr. Kavanaugh might have in the disappearance of the McStays?
We followed up with Mr. Kavanaugh and we verified that he was in Hawaii.
And I believe the testimony was you asked him, he told you the dates, and then they called the airlines, correct?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence is just
Sustained
testimony.
calls for hearsay.
How did you verify he was in Hawaii?
Objection, lacks personal knowledge. Foundation.
Just asking the steps, not the information.
The objection sustained. Well, if he did it personally, he can answer. If someone else did it, then you'd have to call that person.
The steps taken by you to verify.
There were steps taken by the team to verify Mr. Kavanaugh was in Hawaii. I did not personally do that.
Did you do a financial analysis of how much money Kavanaugh took from the EIP after the McStays disappeared?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence and is argumentative.
Did you do a financial analysis of the money, if there was any, taken in by EIP after McStay family disappeared?
Yes, we had Joseph McStay's bank records and PayPal records.
So it was, from what you can tell from the records, that the business continued to operate for some time.
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you look to see how much money Kavanaugh collected from McStay disappearance?
Again, objects, it's argumentative and it assumes facts not in evidence.
Sustained is assuming facts not in evidence.
Did you investigate to see if Kavanaugh even profited?
Objection, relevance beyond the scope and lacks foundation.
Overruled with answer.
Again, I didn't do or participate in Mr. Kavanaugh's interview. That was done by two other detectives on the team. However, Mr. Kavanaugh was asked about PayPal transactions that happened after the McStay's disappearance. I couldn't number them for you. I wasn't there and I did not review those records with Mr. Kavanaugh when he interviewed with us.
As part of the investigation, did you employ a financial accountant to go over the business records to give your team information?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
You said in the record it is important to exclude everybody from these murders, right?
But I do with the suspect.
You think you did everything you could have to exclude Mr. Kavanaugh being involved.
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Trying to see if this detective wrote a report. Now, the chateau key that was located, they make padlocks.
Yes, sir.
They make regular padlocks like we all know, and they make those dip padlocks, correct?
Correct.
And did you review the type of padlocks that are sold by pods when you rent one of their pods?
Not the Pods company. We did go to the AMS storage company and they sold chateau locks there.
And those are those disc ones as well?
I believe they have a variety.
And the key that you found would be consistent with the type of locks they will generally sell where you rent a pod.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
The store you went to, is that where Mr. McStay rented the pod? Is that why you went there?
That was the storage shed that Mr. Merritt McStay had, yes.
And the pod company sells those disc ones to secure the pod when you rent it.
Objection, this states his testimony that it was pods.
Call rule on the
Again, I can tell you there are padlocks for storage sheds. I did not go to Pods to see if the chateau lock was there.
Did you interview Patrick Malloy?
Was that the homeowner of the Fallbrook residence?
No. Mr. Malloy worked with EIP after this.
Objection lacks foundation at this point and it violates the court's preliminary orders.
Well, you can answer if he interviewed one individual.
Conducted a lot of interviews. That name doesn't ring a bell. I would assume if you're asking me, maybe I did.
We're trying to find it, so I'm happy to remember. May I approach with counsel here?
Why don't we go ahead and take our break at this point?
If he can't say that, I'll probably done, so I'm trying to finish with the witness. I want to approach.
Well, there's probably going to be redirect and recently.
I have two questions.
Yeah, then there'll be two more.
I've heard it, he'll be real quick. Let's try it. All right, we can break.
All right.
I'll find out everything.
Okay. Before we break, a couple of things. Number one, we are not going to be in session in court tomorrow. The attorneys for both sides have requested that the jury have the opportunity to view some of the scenes that have been mentioned in the evidence. So we're going to be doing that with the jury tomorrow. The media is excluded from that. Spectators are excluded from that. The sheriff's office is going to have those areas secured, so no one else will have access to any of those areas that we're going to be going to. So there'll be no proceedings in court tomorrow. We'll resume with the trial on Thursday. And so we'll ask everyone else to leave. I'm going to cover a few housekeeping matters with the jurors about tomorrow's visits.